Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Dr. Thusitha Sugathapala. Over to you, Dr. Thusitha.
Good morning. Thank you, Glinda. Let me share my presentation.
We can see your screen now.
Right. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Again, good morning, you all. Like I think the other two presenters in this session, Bert and Noor, already highlighted the concept here, the pool economy baseline development in this region. Sri Lanka is one of the countries being part of that. So my aim of this, presentation is to highlight the challenges and opportunities in developing this full economic baseline, especially in the country context. So I will cover these topics in this 10-minute presentation. I briefly present the road transport sector in Sri Lanka, an overview which indicates the importance of the full economy, labeling of full economy policies to face some of the challenges in not only in transport sector but also economy as a whole. Then I'll brief the full economy initiatives, some of the background information in the local context, how we have aligned our activities or interventions with the global, targets or initiatives. Then I'll go into sharing with some of the experience we gain in this endeavor, the development of full economy baseline. We have been doing this one for now several years. Very recently, we updated this baseline information. So I'm not going to discuss in detail the results, but the challenges and opportunities for the development of full economy baseline. I will conclude with that. So we look at the transport sector in Sri Lanka, as already presented by Noor. Also, we have similar situation. The road transport contribute to more than 90% of the people, the mobility, and also we have higher percentage for even the fleet transport. This shows the active vehicle fleet based on annual revenue licensing of vehicles for the last 20 years, 2000-2020. So we can see aggressive growth of vehicles, and presently we have around 6 million, 5.5 to 6 million vehicles on the road. Now, one of the striking features is the contribution from the private vehicles, the motorcycles, that's two-wheeler, then three-wheelers, the cars, which contribute to the major portion, more than 80% of the vehicle fleet. And the public transport, now this does not include the railway, but buses, it's a very small amount, the numbers of buses, but then the contribution to the mobility is quite high, maybe 40-45%. So that's indicate the impact on buses like public transport on full economy in the sector. Sorry. So that's the situation now. Here we can also see the in 2020 there's a the data, the records, there's a decline in the active fleet. In fact, in Sri Lanka, for the last couple of years, the government has banned importation of vehicles. So therefore, this trend will be seen for the 2021-22, probably coming few years. That is not only due to COVID, but more importantly, due to the economic crisis the government, the country is facing now. So that has impact on the transport sector. So therefore, now here we can see the importance of fuel economy, because the typically motorcycle, two-wheeler, three-wheelers, those and cars are relatively less fuel in terms of fuel economy compared to the public transport. So therefore, management of fuel economy in light-duty vehicles become very important. Of course, we have to also look into the heavy-duty vehicles, but then the priority will go to light-duty vehicles. So we look at the fuel economy initiatives in the country level. Now, one of the important aspects is basically in Sri Lanka, we don't have local vehicle manufacturing industry. So almost all the vehicles we import. And also our petroleum resource base, we don't have petroleum resource base. Again, the fuel for transport are imported. So therefore, transport sector is heavily dependent on the importation, and therefore the economy of the country. And therefore the composition and the performance of transport is primarily decided by the fiscal policies related to importation of vehicles as well as fuels. They are itself the taxation system employed by the government. We have differential tax system based on the type of fuel, type of vehicle, it's some technical characteristics, and usually we have higher taxation for higher capacity vehicle engine capacity, so that promote in a way fuel economy, but not directly. But then this taxation system are not very rational. It has been changing conversely, and it's a very complicated one. So that itself has been a challenge, even not even for this fuel economy aspects, but of course more importantly to manage the transport sector itself. So there are some impacts which have negative influence on fuel economy. Now look at the fuel economy initiatives, the progression so far. Now we look at this concept of energy efficiency in general. Of course, when we go to transport, we call fuel economy. There's some emphasis on appliances, especially electric appliances, to develop these labels that allow the users to have a calculated decision making based on the fuel efficiency side or energy efficiency side. But that has not been the case for vehicles. It has not received such emphasis till very recently. One reason is basically, of course, the complexity of the fleet, the variability of engine performances, the energy performances, the fuel economy performances, and also we have issue that now typically we even here fuel economy we look at the fuel economy of vehicles imported, but on the ground the real life performance of those fuel economy performances are much varied. So therefore there are concerns regarding how far the manufacturer declared fuel economy is representative of the actual situation. So therefore that uncertainty also has given some impact on development of regulatory or other policy level interventions. Recently, now the government has considered this in a direct or indirect way. One of the cases basically for vehicle importation. Now government has introduced technology-based the carbon emission or the emission or the environmental regulation for new vehicles importation that link to the technology basically, and especially in line with European standards. Although it's say only the emissions, when we have better emissions, low emissions, then the fuel economy also become high. So it's interrelated, not directly, but there's a a relation. But then it's primarily on emission, not emission of air pollutants, not really fuel economy. But recently, the Sri Lanka Sustainable Energy Authority with Sri Lanka Standard Institute has now set up a national advisory committee or expert committee to develop full economy label. And they had first meeting very recently. That's one area, and in that one, though it's not fully finalized, the emphasis is basically for two-wheeler, three-wheeler cars, both petrol and diesel, will be covered in this regulatory intervention. It may come as a voluntary scheme, but then going into usually energy labeling programs are mandatory. Once you implement, then you have to be aligned with that. But then for this case, since this relatively new concept, probably the government will start as a voluntary program, but then move into regulation later on. But at the same time, with the new now the emergence of electric mobility, there's some discussion to include this coal economy, or we get energy efficiency of electric vehicles too, because there are some concerns regarding, as a concept, electric vehicles are, of course, better in coal economy or the energy efficiency, but within different brands and different technologies, electric vehicles, there are differences. So therefore, we need to educate people on that. So therefore, this energy labeling program will be extended to electric vehicles too. So this is the present situation. So in coming months, targeting probably next year, we'll have this energy labeling program. Now we look at the full economy baseline. That's the topic today. As already highlighted by earlier presenters, this originated with Global Full Economy Initiative work on the securing real improvements in the sector by looking at this full economy aspects throughout the world and providing support to analyze data collection, analysis, and use those data information to development of policies. So that's the basically basin. And then in Sri Lanka, this the particular project or activity was initiated in 2015 with assistance of UNEP and its partners in support of the broader project, Sustainable Low Carbon Transport Project. So it's basically in relation to development of full economy policies in Sri Lanka and Asia. And one of that part of that is basically the setting the baseline. So we have been working on since 2014 to date for setting up the baseline yearly, especially for light duty vehicles, cars basically. Now here, the further to that, also development of full economy and e-mobility policies is also been considered. Like this information is used to develop appropriate policies, the full economy and e-mobility policies, and especially with introduction of the full economy labeling, as I said earlier, the scheme, and also then use those to identify what are the best, most effective fiscal policies that can be introduced so that we can reach these global targets to show our contribution to these global targets. And we have used this Global Full Economy Initiative Toolkit, this Full Economy Policies Impact Tool, to analyze this information. And here I'm not going to discuss these results. I want to acknowledge here this was basically done by Clean Air Sri Lanka with an expert team headed by Professor Amal Kumarage. So they have now came up with the last several years full economy baseline. Earlier we have seen like around 2015-16 there are some improvement in full economy, but this the recent study result shows that there's a reversal now. So there's a deterioration of full economy, gradual, not very high, but then gradually. So there's something we have to look at it because our plan is to improve it, but then the last recent years we see a gradual deterioration. So I will mainly talk about the challenges and also opportunities. That's basically the key aspect I want to discuss. I think some already came up. One of the major challenges is the lack of baseline data, and we have very conventional monitoring scheme, so that this data is the type of data we need are not available directly, and also we have a lack of access to data resources. That's one of the major challenges. Some of the data is not in like sometimes data is there, but then maybe data quality concerns are there and not the accessibility. And also when we also refer the manufacturer's data, because sometimes they use different testing cycles, and there are variety of parameters they consider, but our data will not show those parameters. So therefore, reference to, although their information is there, referring to this vehicle manufacturer's information is also a challenge. But we have referred basically many different the global and also manufacturers databases, but still getting appropriate value, the relevant value, the full economy is a challenge. And another one which is not really part of that, because full economy is basically looking at those vehicles imported, their declaration by the manufacturers, but then you also want to see real life performance of the full economy as well emissions. That is not really covered in this exercise. And also we have another important that, especially in regulatory sphere, always the government, the relevant agencies would like to see how this full economy related to the other already established standards. For example, air quality, ammonia quality standards, the source emission standards, full quality standards. What's the role of full economy on that? So that scientific correlation between these, we don't have scientific data. We need more research. And also less emphasis by the responsible agencies like Department of Traffic, or maybe Ministry of Environment, other agencies, Ministry of Transport. We don't see much emphasis on this topic, and also not much coordination between these institutions. That's also an issue. And also some of this topic we are discussing here is relatively new to the sector and sector actors. So we have a capacity gap. We don't have many the scientists or the researchers or others who could support this type of exercise. So those are the challenges. Meanwhile, you also have opportunities. So basically, when you look at the recent years, even prior to COVID and also with the COVID, also government foresight on this topic, the energy and transport sector. There are some development roadmaps towards being economy. And there's a presidential task force established to create Green Sri Lanka with sustainable solution to climate change. So they have 7 subcommittees. One of the subcommittees looking at energy and transport. So that's an important initiative through which this type of policy intervention can be done. Secondly, also we have environment sector interventions towards sustainable development. We have about to publish a new updated National Environment Action Plan out of 8 thematic areas. One of the thematic areas related to air pollution and also energy. It's very relevant, this topic of full economy. And also we have cleaner fuels and technology roadmap, which has been drafted, but then there's a new initiative to update it to suit the present directions or drivers or situation in the country. Other important aspect is the global commitments. Already highlighted this national determined contribution in case of the Bangladesh. Here also in Sri Lanka, one of the mitigation areas, the transport sector. So updated national determined contribution. Transport sector is included there. So full economy is part of that. But for this particular updated one, the target is like reduction of 5% of carbon emission with respect to the business as usual case by 2030. Unfortunately, that's not very aggressive enough. It's only 5% reduction. But more importantly, this updated national determined contribution, the document also used to pledge by the government to reach this carbon neutrality by 2050. So that target is more aggressive, and if now the government is now looking to develop that roadmap towards this target, that need much more comprehensive or aggressive interventions beyond national determined contribution, to reach this target in the transport sector. And in addition, of course, the regional and international initiatives also drives this. For example, this discussion itself, this Global Fuel Economy Initiative and other agencies, their disclosures, their targets also drives our decisions. And at the same time, we know that these targets also, the industry, the vehicle industry also respond to this target. And we are basically importing the technologies, meaning that we also have affected by the decision taken by the industry. So that also, since there are initiatives to improve the fuel economy, that will have a direct impact on our situation, because we depend upon vehicle importations. So those are the opportunities for Sri Lanka to mainstream the concept of fuel economy, and then introduce this one as a part of, initially maybe voluntary for kind of education thing, but it will come as a regulation in the future, so that we can, as a country, we can contribute to the global targets. So I will stop here by acknowledging the contribution by all these agencies who support that. Thank you very much.